Hey guys, Danny here, and today I just wanted to share with you a really great entryway knife to the Spyderco world. This is the Spyderco Tenacious. This is kind of like the cheapest entry level knife you can get into the Spyderco family with, for the most part, for a locking folder. This Tenacious is made in China. It is 18CR13 MOV steel, which basically is just a normal plain steel. You'll see a lot of Chinese knives using this and knives throughout the world. It's not necessarily a very fancy steel, but it works just fine. You don't really need a super fancy steel. What you need is a sharp blade that you will occasionally sharpen. Some things to note about this is some people will knock this down for being made in China, which it is made in China, but it is a Spyderco before it's a knife made in China. When they went to China, they probably put a lot of time and effort into the quality control in the factory, probably more so than most knife places. Spyderco has been known to be very obsessive compulsive about what they let out of their factory. If it's not right, they won't let it out. So let's talk about this a little bit. It comes with G10 handles, which are super grippy. These are the same kind of handles you can get on any higher end Spyderco knife. The steel obviously is the cheaper variant of steel, though it's just fine, you know. It's a flat grain blade, which is very simple, and Spydercos are some of the only ones you'll really see with that. It still cuts just fine. In fact, let's take a piece of paper here. Well, look at that. I guess I'm not that great at cutting, but if I give it a little bit of a slice, yeah, it does just fine. That's not a problem at all. In fact, let's compare it. Okay, now we're going to compare it to, so this is not fair. I'm comparing it to a Paramilitary 2 with CPM S110V steel. This is going to be a lot more expensive, but should be a little bit sharper. Nope, you see? It does the same thing. It kind of bends it too. Not a big deal. But if I give it a little slicey slice, yeah, ooh, that cuts a lot better actually. Wow. Well, but this costs a lot more. So, I mean, it's a sharper steel. It retains its edge longer. Anyways, maybe not totally fair, but that's beyond the point. The point is this knife cuts through paper just fine. Just fine. Look at that. You see, actually, it's a little bit more about the skill you have as you're doing it. Anyways, cool. This is a really great entry knife like I was talking about. Some of the nice features about it, besides the G10 scales, is it's also got a chamfered edge on it, so it's comfortable to hold. You can get a lot of purchase grip on it. It's got jimped edges here, so you can get your thumb behind it like that. One thing I don't really totally love about it is if you notice here down towards the bottom edge of the blade kind of just keeps continuing until the handle, so you can't ever grip up here with your finger, otherwise you'd cut yourself. On a lot of the other Spyderco knives, they will actually have a finger place for you right there. So for example, I'll pull out the Para 3 here, which is a little bit of a step up knife if you can afford it, which it's super nice. It's got a little jimped edge here, jimped, I can't remember the word. But it's got a little finger place, so you can close up on it if you're needing to do like a little bit more precise of a cut. So anyways, that's one thing you won't see on the Tenacious. I don't know if they have an alternate version of the Tenacious with the finger choil. I think it's called a finger choil is what it's called. I don't know if they have one with it, but I would prefer that. So it gets a little bit of a negative mark from there, but it's still a great knife. Another good feature about it is the clip here. This clip can actually be moved in any which direction on any side here. All you need is a Torx screwdriver, so you might want to have a Torx set with you at some point. If you don't have like a small tool set, you should probably just get one anyways. So one of the things I will talk about with the knife that is kind of average, and it's just okay, it's the action. Now it opens pretty good if you give it enough force, but there are times where like if you don't get it quite enough, it's a little stiff. It could maybe use a little oil or something. The ball bearings in here are not as high a quality, but also this knife is a lot cheaper. So let's compare that to the Para 3, for example here, which is a little bit of a step up, like I said. It's way smoother. So as I kind of depress the liner lock here, it's just a little bit smoother. You see that action right there? You probably won't get that out of the Tenacious here. So I'll open it up. It's just a little more stiff, which it's honestly, yeah, it's just a stiffer knife. This version I got, it's not a huge deal, but in fact, sometimes it's actually safer. It's just not going to be as quick and responsive. Another thing to mention here, this has actually got a liner lock in it. It's incredibly strong. As soon as you pull out the blade, this little metal middle piece comes out, and this blade is not going anywhere. It would physically have to push through the steel to go back down. So it's a very safe knife in that regard. The only weird thing about it compared to a lot of other Spydercos I've noticed is the liner lock's on the bottom for the actuation. It's actually got a little safety here, so when you do push it in, your thumb will catch the steel before it catches the blade. So that's smart. On the Para 3, for example, here though, the only difference is the liner lock actuation is on the top of the knife. So I kind of prefer it on the top of the knife, but then again, I also started with the Para 3. Some other knives to consider if you're looking at the Tenacious, but you're not quite sure if you want this or you want to step up to the Para 3. Really, I think what you're buying with the Para 3 would be, it's going to be made in America. So if that's important to you, you might want to consider that. It's also got CPM S30V steel, and they come in other sorts of fancier steels, and the action is just a little bit better. But you will have to pay a premium for that. And if you have a knife like the Tenacious and you don't care about breaking it, or rather, you can break it and you can just buy another one. So there's an advantage there. You don't have to be so precious about it. It doesn't have to be like a safe queen, like maybe you might treat your Para 3 a little bit too nicely. Another knife you could consider here would be the Endura. The Endura here is my work knife, actually. The reason it's my work knife is because now there's a lot of them that have a thin grind blade on them. This one is actually a thick grind blade, THICC, thick. And it is not a flipper. It's actually a lot more stiff. It's a back locking knife versus a liner lock, like in the Tenacious. You can kind of see how this one's hollow on the inside and this one's got the liner back on it. This Endura is a great knife. It's really not much more expensive than the Tenacious. They might be close to the same price on some days. And it's made in Japan, and it's VG10 steel, which is a highly water resistant steel. Like this is kind of like a steel you would see in like a nice cooking knife, for example. I love this knife, but the reason I love it is because it's got a thick grind blade on it. You have to be careful to find the thick grind one versus the thin grind if that matters to you for durability. The thin grind one's fine, but this one's got a little bit more heft to it, and if you could almost use it like a screwdriver, to be honest, which I don't recommend. That's not safe, but you could. So anyways, it's another knife to consider, and it's really not too much smaller than the actually, it's a little bit bigger. Look at that. There's also the Delica too. You could think about that. But anyways, yeah, Spyderco made a great thing when they made the Tenacious. They made an entry-level knife for a lot of people to get in if you're trying to kind of get the Spyderco feel and look. As well as the back lock here. So yeah, it's a great knife. I wouldn't think twice about purchasing this. You're gonna get a really good knife. It's pretty cheap, and if you break it, it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, Tenacious is great. I highly recommend it, especially if you're just getting into knives. This might be a great entryway. If you got a little more cash, I would recommend springing for the Para 3 though. It's just a lot nicer and a little bit more refined, and you'll be able to feel the difference there. Either of these knives are going to last you forever though, so just depends on what you do with them. If you're going to use and abuse it, maybe the Tenacious makes more sense for you, or the Endura. If you just like nice knives, Para 3 there. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.